Actually, I could use some.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Friday Salon. Today, we're going to explore one quite interesting and intricate character, a man who embodies multiple philosophies and facets of the postmodern world, the American psycho, Patrick Bateman.
For sure, a lot of people make the mistake of looking on the internet and taking their personalities after this guy. Big mistake. We're gonna see where this guy himself gets his personality from. Every edgy young boy wears Patrick Bateman pajamas, but we're gonna see exactly what type of pajamas Patrick Bateman himself is wearing today, and we're gonna kind of undress him in that sense philosophically.
Who's Patrick?
Patrick, well, the story follows the life of this, what we would call a yuppie in the classic sense, in terms of the way he dresses. He embodies the young urban professional lifestyle in the 1980s. It was an era of booming markets, of extravagance, consumerism, things like that. The Cold War was approaching its end, and so the dominance of liberalism and capitalism and the triumph of free markets was becoming more and more apparent. We're in the year 1987, and so this piece attempts to make a social critique in much the same style as, I would say, The Great Gatsby, because we're looking at the same echelon of society, more or less, albeit with less romance, with less aristocracy, and a lot more perversion and a lot more bloodshed.
Less spirit, I would even say.
For sure.
Patrick Bateman embodies multiple philosophies of the greatest minds of the Western canon.
Mhm.
Patrick is a man basically who graduated from Harvard Business School, and at 27, he took the office, the role of a portfolio manager. He works in mergers and acquisitions for a big finance firm, and therefore he's one of those guys in those tall buildings who act like they work hard but react to no one.
It's very interesting. We never actually see him doing work in the movie. Consider that. The kind of neurosis and liminal quality that pervades this piece. He's never actually working. We know he has a lot of money and we know he has a workplace, but we never see him actually work. His life consists of consumerism, of going to nice dinners, of beefing with his friends, of chasing women, but of no actual work
Actually,
itself.
most of his work is done through his daily morning routine, right?
Yeah, that's where the work happens for this man.
He's a man who believes in taking care of himself. He's a man who has a quite complex morning way of beginning the day.
Mhm.
He's someone who truly lives for himself and has no greater achievement than taking care of himself.
Right.
He truly is a man who stands for himself and nothing else.
What Michel Houellebecq would call a particule élémentaire.
Exactly. He has no allegiance other than one.
To the shareholders, let's say. And even there, like I said, we don't see him at work, so even his fidelity to his work is questionable. His ultimate fidelity seems to be to himself, and I think we should therefore open our philosophical discussion on the type of philosophy that deals with individualism, free markets, the kind of social setting that we're in right now, which is liberalism and its origins in the state of nature.
Exactly. Well, Patrick just has a job to fit in. He says it
Yes,
himself.
yes,
When his girlfriend tells him his wanna be his fiancée, she thinks she is his fiancée. Well,
but she doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes,
exactly.
to say the least.
Well, actually, both of them know what's going on behind the scenes, right?
Correct.
Those are people who cheat on each other.
Casually.
Those are people who are part of New York's elite. Okay, those are people who have so much that they have nothing. They have
Beautiful.
everything. They have everything except the essential, actually.
Yes. They have everything except for what matters. They have everything except for what matters. And we can describe them as being materialistic. And, well, we've discussed materialism and its plights in other episodes, particularly with Rene Guénon. For example, Edmund Burke discusses it a bit too. But we might criticize them by saying the world is not made of what matters. The world is not made of matter, it's made of what matters. And so they have everything in terms of matter, but nothing in terms of what matters.
So, multiple great minds discussed about what men would become since the ideas of
Pretty
enlightenment
much. That's kind of the origin of this all.
and the
Yes.
French Revolution. and Patrick Bateman is the climax of it all.
For sure, for sure. The author, Bret Easton Ellis, who is the author of the book, which got formed into a movie, he's giving an extreme example of a common dilemma, of a common epidemic. And so he takes the philosophy of modernism and its neurosis to its extreme, to its fulfillment, to its telos. We're witnessing the teleologicization. That's not the right word. We're witnessing the, yes, the telos of modernism in represented in one extreme individual,
What do you mean when you say telos?
like the end, the ultimate fulfillment of a philosophy. It has its origins with Aristotle. The idea is that if you follow a train of reasoning to its end, where will it get you? Like, what is the innate essence? What is the innate conclusion? You know, every uh, essence has in it its conclusion. You know, the acorn has within it the oak tree, and so modernism has within it the emergence of a man like Patrick
So
Bateman.
we're going to discuss multiple philosophers. We're going to discuss Nietzsche. We're going to discuss, of course, Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky, yeah.
We're going to discuss Carl Jung, The Shadow. We're going to discuss
Other philosophers that have critiqued modernism, Jean-Jacques Rousseau,
Jean-Jacques Rousseau
the
and
establishment of liberalism with someone like Thomas Hobbes, for example. We're going to look, even the Frankfurt School has some things to say here. And
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith remarks on the free market and capitalism. And so, yes, it's a criticism of modernity. It's a criticism of modernity done in a very particular way because it not celebrates, but it looks at the most celebrated feature of the modern world. It's a man with maximum wealth, maximum appeal, maximum possessions, and so we look at modernity at its ultimate form. We're looking at the pinnacle of society, and the author chooses not to celebrate it but to criticize it severely.
Patrick, during the movie, enters a state of pure disillusion. He's delusional.
He can't tell reality from fiction any longer.
Exactly. Okay. So he has all of that violence that is contained in him, but too much civilization, too much society, too much
Yes,
control
yes,
leads him to be ironically polite.
yes, yes.
Okay. Like he goes to the dry cleaner for to clean his sheets, right? And you see in the movie how at a certain point he starts being aggressive and starts telling stuff that would unveil all of, we could say, his animalistic behaviors that are all chained and tamed within himself. And the more the movie takes place, the more you see the violence accrues. And
Reveal itself, undress itself. And so, what this movie is depicting ultimately, and what you've expressed there, is a neurosis which stems from the incompatibility with man's culture, civilization, and man's nature,
nature.
and man's nature. And so, let's begin with the foundations of liberalism, with which themselves are with that of the state of nature. Thomas Hobbes theorized this in the 17th century. Oliver Cromwell, King Charles I. It was the English Civil War, and he was noting a state of nature, one where there are no laws, no regulation, no morality, no virtue, a state of utter pre societal, uh, anarchistic damnation, right? And so liberalism emerges to constrain that animalistic damnation, that chapter 13, the short, nasty, and brutish life of man. And so liberalism seeks to constrain that by concentrating power within a sovereign who administers laws. But what's very interesting about the field of mergers and acquisitions is that it itself, yeah, it has regulation and whatever, but it's a field with a lot of confrontation. Whereas liberalism as a philosophy is a philosophy which has sought to take man away from confrontation with other men. And so we witness this in the way that Patrick Bateman interacts with the other finance bros.
Well, mergers and acquisitions is the new way of conquest, of
Yes.
achievement. It's,
Yes.
you could say, the new legionary, the new magistrate, the new Roman aristocrat.
Is the Excel monkey,
Exactly.
kind of.
Exactly. That's his way of taking up arms, right? That's his way of achieving glory through merging and acquiring new shares for new companies.
Exactly,
Okay.
it's companies devouring companies. It's a profession where rather than reading the headlines on the Financial Times, you're making them. And so we call it mergers and acquisitions nowadays in the modern world, but in the pre-modern world, this would have been called conquest and annexation. It's the same practice by different terms.
Warren Buffett used to say that nowadays the strategist is on his Excel sheet and the soldier is the money, the currency. Correct? Like now, each of those investment bankers look at those
Those balance sheets, those formulas.
exactly as
Mm.
their strategy,
A model for predicting the future,
and a dollar is a soldier,
for sure.
and it's all about good positioning, good strategy, no waste, and maximum return,
Yes.
just like a general would do.
Exactly. And so we see the similarity now between, and it's very interesting you mentioned that, the comparison with the general. We see the similarity between mergers and acquisitions and the confrontational nature of that profession with man's pre societal condition of aggression and confrontation. You told me before that the contemporary descendants of both Napoleon Bonaparte and Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington, the two guys that duked it out for the future and the fate of Europe on the muddy fields of Waterloo in Belgium, their contemporary ancestors themselves are in the fields of mergers and acquisitions. So we even have a literal contemporary example which sheds light on the violent nature of that field, which itself is expressed to the extreme in this piece. We witness when Bateman is talking with the other finance bros, with the other VPs in his firm. There's always this implicit violence between them. They always look like they're they're on the brink of leaping onto each other and tearing each other apart.
Actually, it's very interesting because he cares about nothing. He doesn't care about his girlfriend cheating on him. He doesn't care about cheating on his girlfriend.
Yeah,
He doesn't care about nothing other than how he looks and how he appears.
right.
So the only thing throughout the movie that truly bothers him is when somebody touches him. Hence, you've seen the irony of us cleaning our hands while coming in. We wanted to embody that spirit, that Geist from the
Yes.
beginning. And we can see that when somebody touches him, he feels disgusted. We can see that when
Contaminated, yeah.
Paul Allen has a better card, visit card, than himself for a role they were all longing to take. It bothers him. It actually reveals the worst part of a human being inside of him, but in a contained way, not in a healthy, contained way, in a way that is
Self-destructive.
self destructive. All that violence is contained within
Right,
himself,
right.
and he has what Nietzsche calls the imaginary
Revenge,
revenge of
exactly.
the slave. The slave always imagines his revenge upon the master. Who is the master, as we've said?
It's Paul Allen in this case.
The master is the one, according to Nietzsche, who,
Embodies superior traits in terms of fitness, vigor, and achieves a lifestyle that perhaps the slave cannot achieve.
yes, but the main point of Nietzsche to the master is the one who gives birth
Right.
to his ideas.
Yes.
And the slave is the one who needs someone to tell him what to do. You know, there's that beautiful part in Rome,
The HBO
HBO, the TV
series.
show. Yes,
Yes.
there is that war between Julius Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey. The triumvirate is
Dissolved.
dissolved, right? And it's tearing apart the empire. And you have Crassus who looks at his slave and tells him, "Oh, what a beautiful life it is to be a slave! Like you don't need to think.
You
Like
don't need to make decisions. You just listen.
people tell you what to do, and it's done,
There you go.
right?"
There you go.
And we could say it's like the employee and the entrepreneur, right?
Exactly, right? And we noticed in this case, why is Paul Allen the subject of Bateman's extremely ironic murder? Well, Paul Allen has the nice. Consider what frustrates Patrick Bateman. Not the fact that his wife is or his fiance is cheating on him, but the fact that Paul Allen has like a certain type of font on his business card. The fact that Paul Allen can get a reservation at Dorsia. The fact that Paul Allen has a slightly nicer suit than Bateman himself. And so Paul Allen uh, embodies the kind of other, the master in Bateman's setting, and so he fantasizes about the murder of this man.
And even with those two women, when they visit the apartment of Paul Allen, right? And
Mhm.
they say, "Oh, wow, your new apartment is beautiful,"
Exactly,
and he's like, "Not that beautiful, right?"
because it's not actually Bateman's apartment. After having murdered Paul Allen, he hosts,
Imagine
yeah,
in his head.
imaginarily in his head, he hosts the girls at Paul Allen's apartment, and they're like, "Oh, Patrick, your new apartment is better than your old one," and this just frustrates him even more. This just deepens his resentment.
Exactly. We're talking about the richest people in America, right? Confronting each other and getting jealous of each other through minor details. Like,
Oh yeah,
it's true those guys have penthouses in a building. Yes. It's true those guys have the nicest suits. It's true those guys have great vacations in the Hamptons or Monaco, Mykonos. But those guys get really frustrated when there is a glimpse of hypermaterialism into someone other than
Yes,
themselves
yes,
that
yes.
surpasses
And
their course to materialism. And look, there is actually that you can see that, right? There is that veneration for Donald Trump
yes,
in throughout the movie. Is that
yes,
Donald Trump? Like he only cares about, oh, is that Donald Trump? Oh, is that Ivanka Trump?
yes. I remember that scene.
Yeah.
I remember that scene. You were expressing something. I'm ashamed it didn't occur to me earlier, but Alexis de Tocqueville, the prioritization of money. How does the American answer the question of what is something worth? How much does it cost? Things do not have intrinsic worth aside of their materially ascribed value, which is determined by the market. Everything is determined by the market. Why do people want to go to Dorsia? Is it particularly good? Not exactly. And in fact, throughout the movie, there's a kind of mockery of the high cuisine of the 80s, like these very big plates with very small ornate food and like flowers and like the sauce is put, it's a mockery of high cuisine. Certainly a man with that type of drive for violence and aggression would much prefer a big steak and mashed potatoes over some decadent little snack on a big plate, dressed up as if it's going to the court of Louis XIV, right? Like even the food must be ornate, right? And so it's a complete mockery. Clearly, the food at Dorsia is not nothing, anything to marvel at, but it's desired and craved because the market has put upward pressure, peer pressure, on the desire to get a seat there.
Over sophistication is actually decadence, and you can
Oh
see
yeah,
that. And a
oh
great
yeah,
point, actually, great point. The thing is not about having a good time, right?
yes,
The goal is not to have a good time with somebody you love. It's not about the place, it's about the person you're with,
mm-hmm,
correct?
mm-hmm,
That should be what normally human beings strive for, right? Relationships, not the place. Well, the place plays a certain role, right?
for
But
sure.
you can see when he takes his girlfriend to Dorsia and she's completely hammered, she's drunk,
Right, right.
she can't even sit on the table.
But
But
it's not actually Dorsia; it's another bar. It's like Barcadia or something.
exactly, exactly.
But who are they to tell the difference?
So it's about the place. They just want to be seen, vu et être vu. You
Yes,
see,
yes.
it's all.
See and be seen.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, Napoleon used to say that power resides in the appearance of power and not in power itself.
That's
What
why he
is
would only show up to the theater once a month.
qu'est-ce que mon trône à part un bout de bois et quelques morceaux de soie?
Right, exactly.
What
What
is
is
my
my throne?
throne?
But a bunch of wood and wool
Exactly.
and fabrics.
You see,
Very interesting. There's another theory that didn't occur to me earlier. Irving Goffman was a political sociologist who discussed this idea of dramaturgical interpretation in his book the interpretation of self through daily life. And the key idea of dramaturgical analysis, well, it's in the name, drama, right? Everybody has become a theater actor, and it goes back to a line in Shakespeare: all the world's indeed a stage, and we are merely players, performers, and portrayers. I think it's from Much Ado About Nothing. And so we witness how the suits, the cars, the girls, yes, even the girls, the food, the venues have all just become props in a performance, in a dramaturgical performance where we are both audience and actor. And this meshing together of performance and absorption of media results in a hyperreality, which is a condition of postmodernism, resulting therefore in the disillusion that Bateman feels, being unable to distinguish the fiction in his head from the real life that he lives out.
exactly, and we can see in that modern world that people want to confine the desires of men internally and not externally. You know, before when a man wanted to achieve, we could say, the climax of his pleasure and the maximization of his senses, which is sex, he would get out and go for it and search for it and work for it. But nowadays, he has internalized that through means of self indulgence, through means of videography.
Yeah, it's very interesting. He's always extremely sexually stimulated. He's making a casual phone call. There's a porno in the background. Well, he knows nothing better to do with his money than to order prostitutes and sex workers nonstop. He must be in a constant state of sexual arousal because it's the only way that he can maximize his pleasure and satisfaction. He's unable to form actual, like, meaningful relations with women or with anybody in his life for that matter. And so the sex partner becomes a commodity, something that can be exchanged for just some money, just some bills.
God is dead, so men now strive for nihilism.
Right.
for the maximization of pleasures. And that is the hyper excitation before
The
the fall,
decline. The
the
decline.
decline.
Right.
Yes, it's the
Exactly.
hyper excitation. The markets are booming, the babies are booming, everybody's making a lot of babies everywhere. America is thriving, America is going forward. The
Yep.
world is becoming
Homogenous,
unipolar,
even. Yes.
right? And we can see a change nowadays. It's changing, right? Right
Completely.
now we've
Yes.
switched. Everybody knows it, right?
It's very interesting. We're living in the aftermath of American Psycho. We're living in the aftermath of that world, the fallout
Exactly,
of it.
exactly. So America and its system, economic system, was dominating the world. Patrick Bateman was a prince in that world,
Yes, he
and
was.
that is the life of a prince. Somebody who has everything, but not the essential, not the relationship, not the meaningful, not what survives men. What survives men, which is love. Love
Mm,
survives men.
correct.
You see, actually, what binds parents to feed their children other than the love they've received from
Right.
their
Right.
parents?
Exactly.
It is a debt.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Your parents feed you because they feel a debt towards their parents, and that is called love. And love is given. Love is being received from above and given to below. And that sense of duty is eternal.
Yes.
That is why we say that love is eternal. That is why we can see that the most deprived individuals are the ones who haven't received love. And you can feel it. They don't feel love towards themselves. They
And
don't
therefore
feel,
they have no love to return.
because nobody gave them love.
Yes.
You see? So Patrick, we can see, has a strange relationship with his dad, right? He talks about his dad as being like that conceit individual who is now an old magistrate of,
Of the financial kingdom.
exactly, of consuming his pleasures. Well, his parents are probably divorced. He's gonna get probably divorced.
Yeah, consider these people that cheat on their wives to be. These are the people that are going to raise kids, a relationship with no love in it. Well, if there's no debt of love to be repaid, then how is the child going to experience love? It's going
Exactly.
to perpetuate into a vicious cycle of dissolution and materialism
Actually, that's what Nietzsche called the death of God in the minds of
in the
people.
minds of men. Yes,
The death of God is the death of love, because first there was the word God gave love to the first man and woman, and those
Adam and
first,
Eve. Yes.
exactly, and that is the pact between the human beings and God. It
Mm.
is the perpetuation of love, that giving of love, because God gave you love through the world became light. That's the beginning of the Bible. First there was the world became light, light became love.
Yes.
And
Beautiful.
love is the debt that you have towards your parents and that you should give to your children.
Mhm.
And if you break that chain, if you break that chain through sin,
You're saying something very interesting. Keep going.
through sinful interactions, because how doesn't a child receive love actually? When the fruitfulness of the union is itself based on lust. The technical term is bastard.
Ah.
Yes, yes,
Very interesting. You were expressing the pact between God, men, women, children, and the dangers of what happens when you attempt to violate that pact. We see, of course, Patrick Bateman's pact with God and with the holy matrimony is most certainly violated. But there's a more antique uh, comparison that we can offer there, specifically as it has to do with the story of the fall from grace of Adam and Eve. And John Milton put it most poetically in his epic Paradise Lost in 1667. Patrick Bateman has so much in common with the character of Satan or Lucifer in the Paradise Lost of Milton, because just like Milton's Satan, Bateman is attempting to make a vain rebellion against the existing status quo. For Satan, it is a rebellion against God and the angels. For Patrick Bateman, it is a rebellion against modernization, against the decadence of liberalism, one that he engages in with complete and utter irony because it is so inconsistent with his nature for aggression and confrontation. What happens, though, is that Satan gets banished to hell by God and the angels for his vain rebellion. And Satan responds after that fact. He said it's better to reign in hell than it is to serve in heaven. And that's exactly what Patrick Bateman finds himself doing. He is the le roi du monde. He is the master of things which are material. He chooses to reign in heaven. Excuse me. He chooses to reign in hell and be supreme in a world of decadence, materialism, gluttony, and consumption, rather than embrace a life of morality, virtue, and love.
What's the last book I've read?
The Bhagavad Gita.
The Bhagavad Gita. The
Yes.
Bhagavad Gita is one of the Hindu epics
Hmm.
about Krishna, a hero, basically, who discusses why he should fight and why he should stand up for himself and his clan. And it's extremely like it reveals your self-consciousness.
Self-revealing. Yeah.
It's an incredible dialogue between Krishna and a deity. And in it, they discuss how everything that comes from lust, Lust,
Eros.
yes, about, and what is lust other than the love of matter? Matter in
Yes.
I mean
Exactly.
material.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
material. That's what I mean, matter. Like
Yes.
la matière.
What is physical? What can be touched?
Exactly. So love of matter brings lust. Lust brings sins. Sins brings decadence. Because what is the fruit of lust and decadence? Can you tell me? Evil.
Evil. Division.
Evil. Okay? And what is the love of order? The love of order is the love of the spirit. The love of the spirit. You see, Patrick Bateman looks at women like women are just a commodity. They're just actually he orders them
He
like
literally orders them.
really, excuse us for the terms, but like you can see it in the movie. You can see it in movie. Like it's like ordering a pizza. He orders
Oh, literally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like there's a moment where he picks up a lady of the night immediately after visiting the butcher shop to show us, like, look at the comparison.
exactly. Like there's no spirituality in it, you see, and that is what we've been through right now. Okay, that's where we're at. Okay,
Yes.
in all of postmodernism. Like, look, you can order food at your door. You can order sexual
Indulgence,
indulgence at your door
satisfaction.
too. You see
Yeah.
where we're at right now, and well, I'm not telling you that didn't exist before. I'm telling you that
It's gone to the extreme.
that is how it's depicted in the movie, at least. Okay,
Yeah, it's very
there
interesting.
is nothing above the matter for him.
Hmm.
You see, even in his relationship with his girlfriend, who's supposed to be
His fiance, his
his
wife to be.
his wife to be, right? There's nothing that exceeds materialism. All she wants is to go to the best restaurants. All he wants is to go to the best restaurants and get the best cards. Actually, he doesn't care about getting the job when he's in a competition with Paul Allen. He just cares about the status.
Exactly.
Yes, he doesn't even
Yes.
work.
Yes, look at how people have been commodified. People have been classified into rank and by their rank, whether it's their attractiveness of a woman or the title of a man. People have become tools, have become just items for usage in the world of Patrick Bateman.
You know what he lacks, actually? He lacks passion. That's the word.
Yes, passion in the genuine sense.
There is no passion. Even when he discusses about music, like we can see at least he has a taste for music, Miami Vice type of music, right?
Yes.
And we can see that here, oh, maybe he has some type of passion, but there's such a perverse way of him discussing the
Yes,
music.
the way you're so right. The way he discusses music and the way their friend group discusses everything is very perverted. It's
Politics.
yeah, yeah. For example, they're at that goth club downtown and they're discussing, "Oh, I heard Soho is being commercialized. Oh, Soho, how does that affect us? We need to be worried about Sri Lanka." And then Patrick Bateman goes ahead with the most meaningless, empty speech ever. We need to promote general social concern. Like, could you come up with a more empty line
You
than
know,
that?
it's like modern day politicians, right? Some of them, right? Like you can feel it's a script. Like it's like an AI talking. Oh,
Yeah,
we should save people from hunger. Oh, thank you.
there's that video of, like, I don't know who it was. Somebody compiled like all the news channels saying the exact same line at the exact same time. You know, it's kind of the sameness of the Frankfurt School to an extent. That obsession, the fact that market again, it's the preeminence of the market. Oh, well, let's tie this into the Kali Yuga later and the way it displaces the social order. But yes, the preeminence of the market elevates what is base, and so market pressure makes all designs diverge into one, which is the singular apex market performing design. hence why all the suits look very similar, all the restaurants are more or less the same. We see it in our day. There's not much which differentiates one phone from another, one product from another, one coffee shop from another. It's just the fact that market pressures have converged everything into one another. And if we may return to the way they critique things, we discussed how they're in this state of disillusionment, being unable to tell what is real from what is fictitious. And that's, as you used the word earlier, postmodernism. Hyperreality is a symptom of postmodernism. Jean Baudrillard, in particular, discussed the simulacra and the simulation. How when Patrick
Who's
Bateman
Jean Baudrillard? Tell us.
is a French postmodernist,
A
alleged,
philosopher.
yeah,
Okay, yes.
other things too, but not worth mentioning. Um, and he comes up with this idea of simulacra and simulation. When we look at how Patrick Bateman and his buddies discuss topics or something beautiful like art and music, it's not as if Bateman has a genuine original thought about music. The way he discusses the music, like you notice, when we discuss together, we interrupt ourselves. Like we have a train of thought, but then we have to revisit it, take a step back because we're developing it in real time in our heads. Whereas with Patrick Bateman, it is, and that's how thought should naturally occur.
Like,
Whereas with
he
him,
just says what you want to hear.
he just mechanically
Okay?
recites it. He mechanically recites it like a machine.
Not
Right?
even like there's no truth in him.
Yes.
Okay, all he does is tell you what you want to hear. Actually,
It's as if he read it in an article in Rolling Stone. And so he has no true genesis of himself. The self is not something which is originated from within him. The self is something which he's absorbed through the diversification of multiple media sources. And so man has just become the tableau of his media consumption.
Patrick Bateman embodies what Carl Jung calls the repression of the shadow.
Yes.
Okay, like he has been so much accustomed to high society, and high society is decadent itself. Like you need to understand that
Yes,
society
yes.
is decadent itself. That when the elites become decadent that much, when the elites become devoid of morality, when the elite becomes like just pursuing nihilism and outer appearances, it's great actually. Outer appearance is great. Like everybody wants to
Yeah, to
look.
be healthy, to be fit, things like that,
Yes,
for sure, for
but
sure.
what is a temple, right? What is a beautiful temple with no spirit inside of it? It's nothing actually. It could fall to any we could say tribulation.
Seduction, perversion, whatever, yeah.
Exactly. And when the elite is going towards that direction, when it loses its morality, we have seen that with Gibbon about the fall of Rome, Edward Gibbon.
Edward Gibbons, yes.
Exactly. And we have seen how when the elites partake into the pursuit of materialism, when they lack
When they abandon their duties and obligations.
when they lack the
Yes.
preservation of the order, because what is the essence of chivalry? What is the motto?
Maintenance.
Maintenance.
Yes.
Tu maintiendras.
Thou shalt maintain.
Maintain, but maintain what? What shall you maintain, ladies and gentlemen? It's very nice, right? Because all the religions talk about an alliance between man and God. It's so interesting. But
Matter and soul.
about the promise.
Yes.
But what is that promise? The promise is the preservation of an order. What is that order? The order of love. How do you preserve the order of love?
By repaying your debt.
By repaying the debt that you have from your parents, that is of love, to your children. And your parents themselves got it from their parents. And the essence
And so it has been for the course of millennia.
and the essence of that love is God. So
Ye-
God gave love to
Yes.
the first man. Then men started giving love. But again, when you want to take part into lusting, when you want to take part into pure materiality
Yes.
with no spirituality and with no will of preserving and even expanding a certain order,
Yeah.
an order in society, there's an order. And what does order create?
Harmony, beauty, love.
Freedom.
Yes.
What does disorder create?
Servitude.
Chaos.
Yeah.
L'ordre crée la liberté, le désordre crée la servitude, mesdames et messieurs, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen. Yes.
Yes, it's interesting. Well, the world has been so orderly for Patrick Bateman. He has so much freedom that he doesn't know what to do with it. It's kind of Rousseau's man in as he emerges from the state of nature into the civilized state, into the commonwealth, which is Rousseau has that famous line. He says, "Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains, nevertheless." Right? Which means like, okay, yes, man has chains. What he has restrained, but what legitimizes those chains? Bateman, living in high society, is so unrestrained. He has so few chains on him that he has no clue what to do with his freedom, and so he becomes his own slave driver. He wields the very whips with which he strikes himself, being unable to surpass the compulsion towards sexuality, lusting, consumerism, and just the pleasures of the
If
mouth.
you think about it, what is Bateman other than one of the sons of the baby boom, right? The post World War
Yes.
II boom, when those GIs came back and up, like America itself became anti-war. America
Yes.
itself saw, because they saw like the mechanized warfare. I was
The
reading.
horrors of
We're
it,
doing a
yes.
video about that, by the way.
The
Young
yeah.
Winston Churchill. My early life, the commission of Winston Churchill. Okay, he wrote a book about his early life, a book for young men who want to start their lives, who don't know where to go, how to do it, and towards what. Okay. And in that book, he discusses how democracy and science have perverted war. Meaning,
Yes, have
he
made war
used to say
horrific. Yes.
war was cruel and magnificent, and war has now been horrific
And mechanized.
and mechanized. Why? Because look, those people, those guys, they went to war thinking they would be heroes or whatever. They came back. They see that, okay, like we're just matter now. It's populations against populations now. Before, like the people had champions, okay, who used to confront each other, like two football teams.
Pretty much, yeah,
You
same
see,
idea.
the aristocrats, they're called the aristocrats.
Yes.
Or even in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Hindu tradition, they're called it's a certain caste. You see, you have a caste system, okay? And the caste of warriors used to fight each other, and that's how you would settle the beefs of nations. But now it's whole populations, and
Yes.
Churchill says it in the book. So interesting. He says that now war, because of democratization, and listen, we're not
We're not anti-democratic. We're not saying down with
exactly. We're just
democracy.
telling you what Churchill said.
Yeah.
Okay, you have whole populations fighting against whole populations. So those people, they come back home and they're like, you know what? And even Churchill wrote an essay called
Shall we all commit suicide?
exactly. Yes,
I knew you were gonna say that one.
exactly.
Yes.
Because like when you confront that reality that okay, so confrontation now is whole populations against whole populations, that's horrific.
That means
That's
death is inevitable. Why postpone it?
exactly. So there's like that.
Why not accept fate?
There's that sense of suicide that has perverted modern
It's
Western
it's
men,
the it's the Thanatos. It's the death drive
right?
versus the Eros, the love drive, and the sex drive.
And therefore, those people after the Second World War, you need to understand, they came back, they saw that okay, nothing is worth living, so they indulged into so much.
Yes, their sacrifice produced such an order which produced such freedom, and the sacrifice, in that condition of maximum freedom, they had the chance to retrospect on their enormous sacrifice, noting at its futility, and therefore, with the maximum freedom and the sense of nihilism, what emerged was just utter decadence, and people became their own slave
What
drivers.
is the 60s in America? It's the years of the swingers,
Yep.
right? It's those are that's the era of the swingers. That's the era of decadence and of
of May 68, for example, Woodstock, Hippy
voila.
Dippy, Ban the Bomb.
That's the dismantlement of the order, ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen. And
exactly.
Patrick Bateman is the fruit of that. He's the fruit of that, of the elites of that system.
Yes,
You see?
consider. Oh, yeah, it's completely true. He's 27 in the year 1987. That means he's some 1960s Woodstock baby.
Exactly.
That's what it means.
Exactly. Those are the new elites of America.
Yes.
Before you've had MacArthur.
General MacArthur, yes.
Before you've had
George Patton, Marquis de Lafayette,
you've had
Paul Revere.
Roosevelt.
Yes.
You've had Roosevelt. What did Roosevelt say about his wife? He said, "I got married and lived happily ever after." As simple as that. Who said, "In all cases, marry. You will either become happy or a philosopher." Who was that?
Was that Nietzsche?
Oh, Churchill. It was
Churchill.
Okay, okay. Very simple. Look, now it's all decadence. It's all the chase of maximum jerkization.
Jerk is, yeah, because
Nice.
pleasure is not even the right word for it.
Yes.
It's jerkization. It's onanism.
Like even
it's
himself,
auto
like
satisfaction.
you can feel Patrick Bateman fantasizes about himself.
Yes.
To be honest with him. Okay.
Very interesting. You discussed the displacement of social order.
Dude, sorry. One more thing.
Go for it.
If you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah.
You know, Narcissus. What is Narcissus?
Narcissus. It's a tale from the Metamorphosis of Ovid.
exactly, which discusses a man who always looked at
Yes, he
himself,
falls so deeply in love with his reflection in the mirror,
then that in the sea,
in the river, in the
that
river.
in the
Yes,
river, that he fell.
yes,
That's exactly what happened with Patrick. Like he's so deeply embedded into himself that then
he's gonna succumb to himself.
he succumbed to himself, and then
Yes,
he confounded reality with his fantasies. He's delusional. At the end of the movie, he goes to his lawyer. He says, "I killed Paul Allen," and he's like, "What do you mean? I talked to him like last week. I saw him in London."
yeah,
Okay, so that's what it is. The Greeks knew it, man. The Greeks knew it, right? Like nothing is new under the sun. Okay, all
mm,
those perversions existed before. Don't worry about it.
exactly.
The world wasn't born yesterday. You're, you're nothing. You're just a
Your
glimpse.
star matter. You're
Exactly.
made of stardust.
Tell them.
There's let's. Oh, geez. Now that you've brought that up, let's go a bit deeper into Raskolnikov of Dostoevsky.
Oh, please.
So both Raskolnikov and Dostoevsky, and I think even the character of Patrick Bateman, as it was conceived by Bret Easton Ellis, is just a remodeling of the character of
With the
Raskolnikov.
axe.
Yeah, the axe is a clear and evident hearkening to Dostoevsky, but also the fact that both of these men kind of embody what might be called the theory of the extraordinary man or the great man theory. Raskolnikov commits this murder because he felt like he had every opportunity to do so because his sister was in an abusive relationship. He needed the money, so on and so forth. He had every justification
He
to commit
looked,
the murder.
sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
but he also looked at himself in the mirror and thought he was Napoleon.
yeah, pretty much.
You know, it's very interesting.
He had this,
Russians,
yeah,
Russians, they have a deep fascination for Napoleon, even though they were at war with Napoleon.
because he's the man that was able to go in so far as take the seat of Moscow.
Yes, like they have the respect for that enemy, you see?
Yes,
So it's very interesting to see that Raskolnikov used to look at himself as
as
being
a great man.
Napoleon.
Yes.
So he was like, yes, I know what is good and what is bad, therefore I can commit a crime.
Exactly. Not even commit a crime. Like the laws are unjust, and I can take justice into my own hands with my axe. And he commits this murder, but he gets overwhelmed with guilt. And here's the difference between Raskolnikov and Bateman. Bateman commits murders out of vanity and
In his
eroticization
imagination.
in his imagination. Right. The murder is not some type of divine violence like we might find in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Iliad. It's just an erotic fetish.
But just as Raskolnikov, at the end, it eats him out. Like you can
Yes.
see him crying under his desk.
Yes.
And you can see Raskolnikov at the end, like he can't take the inner pressure that he has
Exactly.
because he killed that woman, um, Anna.
I can't recall the name, to be honest. But
Yes, well, a woman basically who was a landlord and who used to take money from tenants and expulse them. So he thought he was doing something for the
something just,
greater
something
good.
humanitarian, even.
Exactly.
But
Okay.
yes, Raskolnikov therefore feels the compulsion to seek out truth, and he escapes to the state of nature, Siberia. He escapes from civilization, the contractual agreements between him and the landlord and the law and whatever, into the no man's land of Siberia to become closer with God and seek atonement.
That reminds me of Rasputin. Ras,
What
Ra-
did he do? Yeah. Let's
so
hear it.
so Rasputin was basically,
Oh yeah, he was like
it's
a mythic from the hinterland.
exactly, that Russian monk who used to be like the confidant of
Of Tsar Nicholas II,
yes, and his entourage, and
his wife especially.
well, there are certain rumors, right? Nothing validated. And more than that, like all the aristocracy was jealous of his proximity with the imperial family. Therefore, Raskolnikov was ejected from his village in Siberia, and then he went through the woods, and there he discovered God, according to himself. And therefore, it's men returning to the state of nature, remembering what is essential. What is
Yes.
essential. And you know what civilization does? Let's be honest. Can we be honest? Some cities in the world, some cities, like if there isn't investment in it, they would fall down. They would fall down. Like there are cities built in the desert or in the snow,
That
okay?
have no foreign investment, no foreign intervention, but have stood for millennia.
And there are cities who are also built in the deserts and in the snow, okay? Who are only artificial cities. You know which ones we're talking about. No need to mention them,
Yes, there's a
right?
difference.
Right? But let me tell you something, that nothing is new under the sun. And each and every city that is built of glass has been built of glass a long time ago, since time immemorial. But you know what's the difference? Is that nothing remains of a city built of glass. But what is built out of stone, what has deep foundations, can elevate itself. Where's the highest building in the world? Tell me.
The tallest building in the
The
world?
tallest, yeah.
The Burj Khalifa in
Right,
Dubai.
right. It's built out of what?
Glass.
Of glass, right?
In the middle of a desert.
Yes, but you know, what is the most ancient structure still standing? I would say, no, what is the most preserved Roman temple?
The Parthenon.
The most preserved Roman temple is in Lebanon.
Right.
It's in the mountainous regions of Lebanon. It's in a city called Baalbek. It used to be referred to as Heliopolis. It's a beautiful
The
Roman
the city of
temple.
the sun.
Exactly. And you see, and it's, look, the pyramids, for example.
Yes.
The pyramids still standing.
Mhm.
It's built
Built of
out of
stone.
stone. So those big buildings that can elevate themselves can sustain the hardships and vicissitudes of times because they have deep, deep roots. Deep roots. You shall not elevate yourself if you do not have deep roots.
Mm.
You see? No, you hear.
Yes.
Yes.
And that
So why did I went into such a
Raskolnikov
right? Yeah,
finding salvation
we're talking
in
about
the
that.
state of nature.
So yes,
Bateman, though, doesn't have the option of returning to the state of nature. He cannot reinstitute antiquity, and so he's just caught in a constant vicious neurosis against himself, where he has nothing better to do with his freedom than to become the wielder of his own whips and become his own slave driver at the behest of his compulsions and passions, if we can say that in quotations.
you know, in the Iliad, Homer discusses how the gods act internally in individuals, how a man is punished by the gods through himself. A man is punishes himself, right? It's the gods within himself that are punishing him, and that is what Raskolnikov, that is what Patrick Bateman come after their crimes and their perversions.
Right.
They punish themselves.
You know what it is? It's sex drive and death drive, what Freud called eros and thanatos. Eros meaning the compulsion towards sex, lust, even sex in all its forms, to be honest, and thanatos, which is that aggression, violence, so on and so forth. And it's not that these things are opposites to each other; it's that they are often intertwined and co-arising with one another. Bateman is living in such neurosis that he is unable to distinguish the two, and so sexuality itself is coupled with his death drive. Every sex act ends with a murder, and murder is even something eroticizing for Patrick Bateman. And these two forces just compound on themselves until it results in his neurosis.
Well, Patrick Bateman needs to work out, which he does, but like aerobics and the Harvard boxing club. But he needs to travel a bit. He needs to travel. He needs an adventure. He's
Yes.
lacking adventure time. He's lacking real connections. He needs to go to a small village on a Greek island and meet a humble woman. Honestly, okay,
Yeah, that would fix him up.
right?
Yeah, Greek woman for sure.
Exactly. In a small Greek village, he needs to meet like a humble, beautiful woman who wouldn't care about going to Dorsia, but would just care about his presence,
Yes.
his love, his softness, his kindness. Okay? Because what did René Guénon say?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Like before, a man was measured by his qualities, not
Yep.
his quantities.
Yep.
Meaning, he's an honorable, he's a noble man. He
He's
doesn't lie.
virtuous, courageous. Yeah.
Voila, voila, voila.
Things that cannot be measured.
Now we measure a man by
His title, the attractiveness of his girlfriend, where he gets dinner reservations, his business card, the tailoring of his suit.
and more than that, like you can see in American Psycho that girlfriends are just like trophy girlfriends. Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
just they're their girlfriend because like, oh look, my car is more beautiful than yours. Like it's just about bragging. Like
Yes.
they're just trying to impress people they don't care about. That's what it is. Honestly. Okay, let's be honest. The truth is beautiful. I think the truth will set us free, all of us together, forever. And
Yes. The evocation of Ganon is especially important. We could describe Patrick Bateman as being the man of the Kali Yuga who fights the crashing waves of materialism and modernization with a tailored suit and a red tie. That's what Patrick Bateman is, because the Kali Yuga embodies that era of the cycles, the yugas. It's the Iron Age. It's the hardest of them all, where Morality has gone out the window. Materialism and decadence are on the loose, and the result of the Kali Yuga, what it entails, is a complete and utter subversion of this social order. Ideally, you would want your caste of philosophers, priests, kings, the people of spirit, to be directing the society, right? But what the Kali Yuga, what happens in the Kali Yuga, because of the trend of economization, materialism, the preeminence of what is physical and what is numerical, it puts the base of the society, the people of matter, ahead of the people of spirit, and it embodies itself in a Marxist lens by the displacement of the aristocracy with the bourgeoisie. And that's kind of what Patrick Bateman is. He's the ultimate bourgeois. And we witness how this man of the Kali Yuga displaces the social, or has displaced the social order, because he's not a man of spirit, right? Certainly not. Or of virtue. He's not a man of refinement and high arts. He's just the man of the Kali Yuga.
You know, it's very interesting to see the difference between a bourgeois and an aristocrat. An
Yep.
aristocrat is used to wealth. Actually, an aristocrat knows that wealth was acquired slowly throughout generations.
Right. And so he knows how to use it, be prudent with it, as opposed to spending it on prostitutes and cocaine, for example. There's better things to do with it,
Well,
to put it bluntly. Too bluntly, perhaps.
yes. Now, well, some of them did, surely, but like what we mean by that is we're making generalizations, right? And if we don't generalize, we cannot think, right? We cannot take case by case, correct? Therefore, the aristocrat knows that it is slow work that makes haste,
Mm,
correct? And quick work makes waste,
yes.
we could say. Now, the discovery of America transformed peasants who were never accustomed to such wealth. Like, they just came to America and they've had access to so much wealth in an instant. They're not accustomed to it. Therefore, it created a class of hyper bourgeois, okay, who have accustomed themselves to a freedom they're not used to.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So basically, in the order of things, there are certain individuals who are internally enlightened, and who burn to eliminate their centuries. Okay?
Yes.
And the closer you get to those individuals, the more you can find salvation. Well, because themselves, they found inner salvation through study, through experimentation, through discovery, and we could say the esoteric religious activities they partook into.
Yes.
And that's how it was, right? You've had the king, who was a priest. Remember, the king was also a priest.
The warrior priest. We discussed that in Fustel de Coulanges.
Exactement. Therefore, the king, and then you've had an order. You have people gravitating around him, like the sun, right?
Louis XIV.
Like the sun. Exactly. Okay. They all wanted to emulate the sun because the sun burns.
And illuminates its orbit.
Exactly. And people move around him, right? Correct. But what happened with the discovery of America is that everybody started and wanted to become their own sun, SUN, and their own Leviathan, their own states. And that is hyper Protestantism, I would say. Hyper Protestantism. And what is the end goal of Protestantism? What is the end game of Protestantism? Is that man lives in a delusion where he is his own God. And that transforms and translates into hyper materialism, into narcissism, into Patrick Bateman, into a psycho, an American psycho.
Not just any psycho, an American psycho.
Exactly. Well, the movie talks about American psycho. You can never become that unless you're in America.
Yes, exactly. It deals with a particular neurosis, a particular reaction which is unique and distinct to America, that nation which has spearheaded the advancement and the principles of the Enlightenment, modernization, and progress. And so, in that condition of maximum order, maximum freedom, and maximum expression, maximum goods, and maximum materialism, you have the perfect staging ground for the telos of what these forces might come to, and therefore for the Kali Yuga itself. We are now living in a time where we are immersed in the very aftermath of the circumstances which are expressed in American Psycho. If American Psycho does express some truths, they might be inner truths. It might be expressive of a neurosis which is common to us all only when taken to the extreme. And in that case, yes, it's a movie to be disgusted by, but it's also a movie to provoke a lot of introspection and a lot of reflection, a lot of analysis on our interaction with our society, with money, with our peers. We we it would be the bane of all of our existences if we were all to dissolve, collapsing under our own narcissism, leaping into the river, admiring our reflection, crushed under the weight of our conflicting eros and thanatos into this dissolution of a man, this shell of a man, this corpse of a man, Patrick Bateman.
And especially that nowadays the geopolitical and the world order system is shifting drastically from what it was. Patrick Bateman was the commencement of a new unipolar system internationally, one where capitalism would strive everywhere on the planet, one where the United States would assert its dominance all over the planet. And more nowadays, we can see a multipolar world developing itself. Those are the realities of things. We can see that the world is more complex than what we thought. We can see that the world isn't just black and white. There are multiple nuances. There are multiple cultural differences, civilizational differences, which is fine, which is okay. Well, in diversity lies beauty, actually, right? And it's very important to understand everybody. It's very important to put ourselves in the shoes of everybody and in the complexities of everybody. We are at the dawn of a new era of multipolarity. Patrick Bateman was the man who was the beginning of that era of unipolarity and new values. What is the end game of Nietzsche when he says that God is dead in the mind of the people?
The creation of new values.
Of the overman, the man
Yes.
who creates his own values. That is, we could even say, the resurrection after death. The resurrection after death. We can say that hyperactivity of American Psycho, that nihilism was purgatory.
Yes.
And now, Western man, it is time to choose
Freedom or
hell
damnation.
or freedom. We must return, as Nietzsche would say, to the values of the Renaissance. We must return to them, to those values of not despising beauty and sensuality, but looking at it with the eyes of a poet, looking at it not in a lustful, but in a beautiful way.
In a loving, not with lust, but with love.
Exactly. It is a time where we should look at women, for example, as being not a commodity for our trivial and animalistic.
For our vain spectacles.
Exactly. But a temple where the spirit, promised by God, by that holy alliance, that alliance based on love, can germ and give life. It is time to find back the values that have been lost. It is time to become what we have been. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, to find that holy grail that lives within each one of us. It is time for harmony. It is time for beauty. It is time for the Friday Salon. Like, subscribe. We have
Comment,
a link in
share.
We have a link in
Do it
our
all.
description, because your pleasure, as
Is
usual,
our treasure.
exactly. And to that, I would say, voila.
A big voila.
Voilà, voilà, voilà qui je suis. Mais voilà, même ici, mes années c'est fini. C'est mes gosses, c'est mon cri. Mais voilà, tant pis.